Ayla, welcome to the Lessons of a Lashpreneur show. Thank you so much for joining me. Why don't you tell everybody where you're from and what your business is?
Yes, thank you so much for having me, Tara. This has been one of those kind of dreams come true. I've listened to your podcast forever now. But I'm from Calgary, Alberta, Canada, and I own a home-based business. I do lash extensions as well as a few other services too. I didn't fully set up my business until about 3 years ago. And I was still working part-time actually at an eye doctor's office, which when I have clients come in for the first time, they actually like that fun fact about me, and it makes them feel safer and trusting of their eyes.
You handled a
Um,
lot of people's eyes in your day.
yeah, yeah. So I worked for an optometrist for 14 years. So I do actually know a lot about the eye and eye health and what that looks like and what that doesn't look like. So yeah, I gain a lot of trust from people. Uh, Business has been really great, all thanks to the Lashpreneur Society.
Yes, ma'am.
Uh, we had a conversation about how I've been a longtime member, but kind of just sat with it until I knew that my time was coming to an end at the optometrist's office. Although I love everyone that I worked with there, I did have a vision of wanting to be my own boss.
Yeah.
So,
So
yeah.
talk to me about that when you're working for someone else, it's, a separate industry.
Mhm.
When did it first plant the seed that you wanted to go out on your own or pursue lashing as a business full time?
Um, well, the role that I had within that company was business manager. So I was basically in a sense running a business, but it was someone else's business. And I'm so grateful for that opportunity, even because it did give me a lot of confidence and skill sets. Like I was in charge of overseeing our marketing department, and they did email campaigns. So I kind of already knew certain things before I actually started dipping my toes into the Lashpreneur. But I think I don't know, there was just what I knew I was very passionate about lashing. I love lashing. It's so, and I'm surprised I even, you know, I'm surprised that like I worked full time at this being a business manager, and I also did lashing part time. And every time when I had to come home after, let's say, an 8 to 9 hour shift, I was never too exhausted to do lashing part time. It was genuinely something where I felt like I just, it was me. I did it for like, it was relaxing. It was relaxing and the one thing that I love about the lashing industry is like it's a luxury service that people are wanting to pay you for to treat themselves. Whereas, someone in the coming to get their eye exam, it's not they're kind of grudgy that they have to spend money on.
They'd rather not be there. They'd rather have perfect eyes and not have to be there.
Exactly. So it's just like you get to see different clientele, you get to meet, all these new people that are just happy to, you know, with what you're doing for them. So I think because that light lighted me up, I was like, yes, I want to figure out how I can do this like 100% just and not have to work for someone else. So
What were some of the blocks? I mean, you joined the Lashpreneur Society a couple of years ago and kind of was just passively observing in the group as we have several members do. What was the obstacle or the belief that you had that kind of delayed it until finally like October of this past year where you're like, now is the time?
good question. So the biggest one was financial. When I started lashing 8 years ago, it was to provide some extra income for when I was on maternity leave. And I it was my first and only kid. So I was thinking too much rainbows and butterflies, and I had no clue how much time and effort a kid would actually
as we all do.
But we like once he was born, we got him on a good little sleep schedule. So I did have some kind of schedule that I can work around. Um, and I did it part-time. I think at that time it was more of a hobby just to get extra income, but I didn't know how much I would love doing it until 8 years in, and I'm still loving it. So financially, plus, ending a relationship with my child's father, starting another relationship. There was a time where I was a single mom, so it didn't ever feel like it would be possibility and that it would just be like a way to generate extra income for what we needed. And basically, there was a lot of things that I wanted to put in place before I, you know, pulled away from something that was secure.
Right. So
And
that sense of security, which we've talked, so
yeah,
context, she has been a part of the Lashpreneur Society. What we have each month is that we offer the most engaged member inside of our Facebook community a free one-on-one session with me. And so Ayla got that. And so we just finished that up. And so she was talking about, she's like, everything's going great in business. And we'll talk about some of the results she's experienced now that she is very active in the community. That she was like, I don't know, let's talk about future goals and the dreams. And we created this vision of her in this library. I'm envisioning like Beauty and the Beast library. I don't know what her vision was, but that's what came up for me. It's like she's not trading her time for money. She is, has some passive income, but she's still lashing. But really we looked at creating, like, what was it going to take for her to get to that goal? And part of that feeling that you had in that room with all of these books and like having time freedom was a sense of security. And what's
yeah,
interesting is, part of entrepreneurship goes against security and stability just
hmm
by the nature of it's a lot of risk, right? And
hmm
so I could see where, when you have somebody else writing your paycheck, you have optometry, which isn't going anywhere. There's a lot of stability that type of career can create, even though it may not be that fulfilling. But what's ironic is now that you've really leaned into running your lash business, you have now probably more security than anything else because you're the one who's making the decisions in the business.
exactly, yeah.
Nobody takes away your paycheck. You can't get fired.
hmm
You may want to fire yourself. Like I'd like to fire myself from my company a few times,
Yeah.
uh, just collect retirement. But that's what's interesting about when we look at stability jobs can create for us, and we look at, economic recessions. And I've been laid off twice in my lifetime where my
hmm
job was taken away from me. I was never fired. I was always laid off.
hmm
So it's security is not always there, even with a job. But when you own your own business, you get to make decisions all the time that hopefully benefit you or that you learn from to help benefit you. So talk to
Right.
me about, was there a specific moment or series of events where you decided now's the time for me to go on my own? Like really
Yeah.
go.
Yeah. So I slowly pulled away from the optometry job. First, I demoted myself as business manager because I felt like trying to answer a million questions in one day was starting to take a toll on me. So I opted just for like their basic call center booking appointments type role. And they loved me so much that they offered me like part-time to accommodate like the hours for childcare and stuff like that. And I was working it now part-time, like equally part-time, between the optometrist office and the lash business. And I was starting to track my results on what I was able to do with the lash business. And there was a point where I was talking to my fiance and I told him, I was like, well, I've been making enough to cover bills just on doing lashes part time. I was like, I'm fairly certain that I am going to pull the plug after we get married because we're trying to save for a wedding. But he convinced me to just pull the plug now
Love
because
it.
he makes a very solid income, and we could probably just live off his paycheck alone. And yes, we are still trying to save for that wedding, but we really crunched the numbers. We looked at it together, and he's like, no, he's like, if it's not now, then you're always going to have some sort of excuse, like the wedding. Like if it's not now, like it's never, like, you're something's always going to come up for you.
Agreed.
So
Must be a reason.
I I thought, you're not wrong. So I went into the company the next day and I gave them more than sufficient notice, and they were happy but sad at the same time. But
So
yeah,
talk to me about how much were you doing in your business before you really dove into the Lashpreneur trainings and getting the support? What was like
I
sales?
I would say I was doing about $1,700, just
Nice.
doing it full time.
You're part-time.
Um, yeah, I forget what I did the first month in business. I want to say it was like 2,500, and then consistently for a few months, I was doing 3,500. And we talked about just last April was my biggest month yet, where I did over
Yeah.
$5,000 in sales.
So for
Um,
context, she really got invested back into the Lashpreneur Society, started showing up for coaching calls, started,
yeah,
getting the program in October-ish, if I
in
remember right.
October. Yeah,
And then November, that was the first full month that you were full-time in your business. I mean, where you didn't have another income, is that correct?
exactly. Yes.
Do you remember how many clients you had in that first month in November?
Oh gosh, it was so minuscule. I I want to say I had like 20 clients.
Yeah.
Now
Well,
I'm
that's not minuscule. Like that's pretty darn good. And I know you've been
yeah.
lashing a long time, but to really go all in on your business and have at least a minimum of 20 clients,
Mhm.
it's a good starting point. So
Yes.
the October, November, December, January, February, March, April. So within 7 months,
Mhm.
more than doubled your sales,
Yeah.
doing $5,000 a month. And we just calculated a rough profit margin. She's
Yeah.
doing about 62% profit. But that's her take home.
Mhm.
Not too shabby, ma'am, for looking
I
for security and putting that off for a few years.
Yeah, exactly. And honestly, it's all thanks to the program. Like, as soon as I became invested, no messing around, like just applying everything that you guys teach in the society, it was just game changer. So
How many new clients did you have in April?
15.
15 new clients in April alone.
Yeah.
That's got to feel good. And she's worked really hard on her retention.
Mhm.
And so a lot of those clients are retaining because sometimes it's great to get new clients in and then you don't keep them. So it's just kind of a leaky bucket, but that is not the case that you have.
Yeah, no. So 10 of them were Lash clients. I've kept all 10 of those.
Nice.
Yeah, and one was a sugaring client, and she's coming back again for more sugaring. So and I think the other 3 or 4 were facials. So I find with facials, they come back whenever
They
they
come
want to
back.
come back. Yeah.
Unless they're trying to solve for a specific skin condition, they usually
Yeah.
just come for pampering.
Yeah,
That's amazing.
exactly.
What was your number one lead source for the marketing that worked to get those 15 in?
So when we did our last coaching call, we really tried to fine tune stuff with Google.
Yeah.
So my goal was to get more Google reviews, um, tweak my website, and also to run a Google ad. And between Google and my it's been my long consistent source of finding new clients has actually been Facebook groups.
Nice.
Yeah, so I'm
They're
still
not
like,
dead, y'all. They're still there.
yeah. So I got a lot of recommendations from my existing clients in these Facebook groups that I'm in, and people find me a lot through there. And the Google ad, now that I've understand it, it's been working wonders as well too. So
Beautiful. So what's possible for you this year? Like, where do you want to be at the end of 2024? What would be a cool end of the year celebration?
So I think it would be trying to maintain or obviously do more than the $5,000 in sales, and um go through my first price increase, because I've never increased my prices ever. So I think that's going to be maybe a scary leap for me when I do it, but I'm also very confident in the way you guys have gone about addressing price increases where it still gives me a sense of security that I'm not going to lose all my clients.
Yeah,
So
we have a very specific strategy and a certain numbers we want you to get to before you do a price increase, because we want a big price jump with the intention of
yeah,
dropping off some clients to free up some time. So
yeah.
let me plant this seed as like a fun little goal, since we did some goal setting in your call previous to this.
Mm.
Let's aim for $8,333 a month in sales. Like let's get to 1 month doing that. Do you happen to know
Okay.
why it's that specific of a number?
No, why?
12 months of $8,333 is $100,000 a year business, man.
Oh, dang. Okay,
Yeah.
cool.
We're talking about in sales, right? That's not
Yeah.
her profit, that's not her take home, but that'll be pretty nice. You'll be doing
Yeah.
about, 60-ish thousand in take home for the year at that rate. But I think you're totally capable of getting there. You're more than halfway there now. And if we're
Yeah.
looking at the end of the year, you still have another 6-ish months to grow and increase sales. And I think once you do a price increase, probably I would say with where you're at, maybe midsummer, end of summer,
Yeah.
holidays are going to kill it. You may be above that over the holidays, but I
Yeah.
want you to celebrate in the group when you hit that first month that you've done 8,333, because I'm giving you
Okay.
that as your next goal.
Sounds good.
All
Love
right.
it.
Get it
Love
knocked out of
goals.
the park. Time to increase the ad spend. Awesome. Well, let me just ask you this.
Mhm.
If you could give Ayla let's say 2 years ago, advice, she was kind of just being an observer in the group, but she had joined the program. What advice would you give her that would help her feel secure then, so that she could keep living her dream and moving towards it faster and faster and not have to spend 2 years waiting?
Um, I would just say, just actively put in the work. Because that's all I did was just start applying the trainings. And I I would have saved myself 2 years. So,
Baby steps, right?
yeah,
Learn and master one step at a time. And if you don't know what that next step is, get support.
yeah,
Right. I love that.
yeah,
That's beautiful. Awesome.
yeah.
Well, if you guys want to learn more about how to go from overlooked to fully booked, we do have a free training. It's about 90 minutes. Usually the training's about 75, and then we'll have some time for Q&A. You can go to lashpreneur.com/masterclass to get into and register for an upcoming free overlooked to fully booked masterclass. And this is specifically for those that struggle with marketing. If you're just getting into business, you want to understand how successful businesses like Ayla get to the point where they're doing $5, $6, $7, $8,000 a month. So that class, we've got class times coming up. Go register for free. And Miss Ayla, I will hopefully see you next month when you win top contributor again. So another goal for you.
That
You get a lot of
sounds good.
homework in these programs. I'm telling you, we give you
Yeah,
accountability and homework.
yes, exactly. Well,
Awesome.
thanks so much for having me on the podcast, Tara.
Well, welcome. I hope to have you back at the end of the year when we celebrate with you on the podcast that you hit your goal. So putting that
Sounds
out there.
good.
All right, guys,
Perfect.
have a good one.